This is not a political panel. It's going to be the chaser to the rest of the day, or the granité, as Giacomo said. The room has a far left and a far right. This panel has nothing to do with that. One of the moderators this morning, Trevor, said that this was day 94 of the Trump administration. I looked, and it's also day 876 of the ChatGPT era. And this is what we're going to talk about. Or if you're technically inclined, it's day 2876 of the Transformers paper, the AI world we live in. And there's a kind of a paradox at the core of Canada and AI as a question. We talked about it last year at this event. But the core question is, how can we be leaders in the science, having literally co-invented the field, but being so timid on adoption and having AI be such a small sliver of our corporate life or public sector life or not-for-profit life. So to tackle this issue today, we got an incredible panel of practitioners. So I like to think of our panel as having two producers of AI and two consumers of AI. We're going to tell us about their journey and what lessons they've learned that the rest of us can apply. Jacomo Corbo, 2 seats to my left, is the CEO and co-founder of PhysicsX, actually a serial entrepreneur. Giacomo's founded other businesses. He was a Formula One chief race strategist. He was a McKinsey partner. Giacomo blends, and I've seen it up close, deep technical knowledge with cutting-edge innovation across advanced industries. And I will look forward to hearing more about PhysicsX. Next to me is Nicole Janssen, another producer of AI. Nicole is the co-founder and the co-CEO of AltaML, and one of North America's leading voices in responsible AI innovation. Nicole and her team of more than 100 people help organizations in the public sector and private businesses choose, adapt, customize, develop AI tools to improve their outcomes, their performance. And she's going to tell us more about that. Todd Deaville is the VP AI Innovation at Magna International. Todd has 25 years in the global auto industry, so we're going to keep talking about automotive, but from a very different angle. And he leads the integration of robotics and smart tech to drive the future of manufacturing at Magna. Finally, and a really nice compliment on the AI consumer side, is Peter Bak, the Chief Information Officer at Humber River Hospital, a digital health pioneer. Peter is leading the charge on digital transformation in hospitals, including Canada's first fully digital hospital and the creation of a state-of-the-art health research institute. So with these four people, I think we're going to get at least a very good view of the current status of AI deployment in some of our most important institutions. And I look forward to the questions from the room. We'll use Slido as we, I asked that AI select the questions, but personally that was not on offer, so we'll have to choose from things that flash on the screen. But I'd like to start the conversation with a question for all the panelists, which is, this room is full of leaders who run businesses, NGOs, philanthropies, government departments, some very large ones. What is the one lesson you've taken from the last few years of engaging with AI that you want to share with them as they look at adoption, as they look at transforming their businesses using that technology? And I'll ask Nicole to start, and then we'll...
Sure, you bet. I see some common mistakes happen often in organizations. One of the biggest ones is that AI lives in IT. AI is not an IT project. IT is a companion, a partner to an AI project. But unless you know the problem intimately, you know what the ROI would be on solving this problem, you know the existing process, you understand who the stakeholders are and who's going to be impacted by implementing this problem, and you can support the change management. Unless you can do all of those things, then you can't run an AI project effectively. And so I see so many organizations say, hey, IT department over there, the ones that have made their careers on keeping us safe and locked down and secure, think about AI. Let us know what we should use and when we should use it. That is the death knell of AI in your organization. Say goodbye to AI. I'll quickly touch on two others that I see a lot. Building cool AI. Stop building cool AI. Stop asking the question, what should I build with AI? The question should be, what are my biggest business problems, and is AI the right tool to solve it? And then lastly, on your first AI project, expect 70% of that project to be change management. Each project after that will be less and less and less, but be ready for the fear, be ready for the concerns, be ready to slowly walk your organization down that path, and just be prepared for that.
Thank you, Nicole. Giacomo?
I think maybe everyone here has heard, the famous Marc Andreessen quote, "Software is eating the world." The reality is that AI is eating software now, and it has never been easier to use AI if only in software engineering activities, right? And so, for a lot of organizations that are thinking about how to digitize, like how to build, greater capabilities, the reality is that, being a producer, in Andre's framing, has never been more accessible to a longer tail of organizations. It required, a mix of technical profiles, different kinds of developers a few years ago that, to be honest, was beyond the reach of most organizations. It required you to, say, like, if I need something built, I need to go out to, let's say, systems integrator to be able to do that. There's absolutely a role for, in higher complexity things to be able to, have partners that can give you leverage and accelerate that. But the reality is that just about every organization needs to be thinking about what they can build themselves. And it is easier and easier to do more of that development with fewer, roles, with more people that are fungible across more of the software stack. There's a huge transformational shift that's happening right now. And many of you will have heard of GitHub Copilot to start with, and maybe tools like Devin and Cursor and a number of others, right? But these are, and even Anthropic, or the use of ChatGPT for coding, so the use of Claude and Sonnet. The point is that all of these tools are really eating into the complexity of software engineering, is making it easier for organizations to be able to do more of that building themselves. So if there's a single point I would make, is that the consumption of AI, the adoption of AI has never been more democratized, more accessible to organizations. And that's really on the software engineering side. But I think it also touches the knock-on of that is that you should be really, I take the point that you were making around the change management side. So much of the enablement isn't so much, it isn't so much about the tactical enablement of individuals and leaving a process untouched. A lot of how organizations should be thinking about solutions and getting enablement and driving productivity should run through a willingness to refactor workflows, to refactor what these processes, to look to do end-to-end automation, and not to have people who are ultimately pushing paper, doing something that could otherwise be completely automated now. And that, and so there's a degree of discipline and a willingness to engage with the software engineering, the software development of it all, but there's also got to be sort of a commensurate, push and willingness to engage with the change management.
Peter.
My turn.
Yes.
Well, from my experience, what I would offer is get prepared for very rapid transformation. So many organizations are still struggling to transform, but the world has suddenly had a jet engine shoved up its tailpipe and it's about to take off. So you may not have a choice in this matter. And it's everything that you're saying, which is this new AI that we're seeing, which is really democratizing AI, is forcing organizations to have to engage and change. So get ready for that. And the getting ready, we're sort of an interesting example, maybe, of what happened when we engaged in digital transformation. And these are the points that actually might be interesting. We started digital transformation, and that had a catalyst to happen, but you get a lot of resistance. That's fairly normal. And what happened? People started to see the value of that transformation, and they began to innovate. Innovation meaning that they were asking for change. Asking for change drove more transformation, which then led to culture shift. The culture shift asked for more innovation. What happened? We created a flywheel. And my job is to be able to support the customer asking for change. I'm suddenly like, yikes, I can't even deliver this anymore. So the organization has gone from one which is very resistant to one that is demanding change by the minute. And when Gen AI popped out, ChatGPT, this just blew right up in my face. How do you deal with that? This is a very big challenge for those parts of the organization that have to deliver it, which is the CIOs or the CMIOs or the CSOs, whichever C you are, but you have to get ready to deliver this stuff. And the point that you're absolutely right, this is becoming so much easier to do yourself. It's not the old-fashioned, let me go write an RFP, go procure a big system, put it in. This stuff is highly agile, very fast, and you need to build an infrastructure and a governance model to be able to do that in your organization. The learned people use the language of citizen development, where you're empowering your front line to actually identify the business issue, and then you help them solve that problem. And it's often a very small little problem, but they want to change it, and then they find that when I change it, oh, that didn't work too well, change it again. But this is how innovation will start to rapidly take off in your organizations. How do you support it? How do you deliver it? This is the challenge that I think many face.
Thank you, Peter. Todd?
Yeah, so I work in a large engineering manufacturing company, automotive. We heard a lot this morning about challenges we kind of face there. Won't go into that, but the point is we have a very clear sort of existential threat and a challenge, and what we're doing on the technology side, the AI, is actually highly optimistic, right? This can really help us. And the point I want to make, right, whether it's coming into on the engineering, manufacturing, waste, automation, dull, dirty, dangerous jobs, quality, all of these things, ultimately they're productivity related, and AI kind of impacts really every single one of them. So it's sort of now I've got this fire hose of capability coming at me, and to your point, Peter, right, how do I deal with that? I would say people tend to kind of be in two major camps. There's the early adopters who are like, okay, I can do this, take it all on. And so we get maybe half or a quarter of people that really engage. And you don't get resistance, right? You get little pockets of activity everywhere, people building things and trying, fantastic, but that has its own challenges. Then you have the other side, which essentially it's fear, right? And what's fear? It's lack of understanding. It's people don't, like, what is this? Why are we talking about it? There's so much hype and noise out there, so much talk about AI. Well, what is AI? Well, it's a whole bunch of things, right? It's a bunch of tool sets. And so how do we make people understand? So what do? It's communication, change management. Ultimately, how do we educate, communicate through the organizations? bring together the early adopters, the people that just want to race ahead, give them some framework, right? Help them share knowledge, and then bring in, you know, the folks on the fear side, which really comes down to, you know, how can this help us? And bringing those groups together is sort of really important. And so building that in an organized way, building those case studies, communicating those really broadly is really important, because ultimately the value from this accrues at the working level, right? It's actually a lot of the folks that are really terrified are where a lot of the potential and the value exists, right? Because you can help them do their day-to-day job, they just maybe don't see it. And so that again, communication, change management, I think is a key part.
Thank you, Todd. All four of you are people who build AI system and scale them up for 10 people, 100 people, 10,000 people, depending on who your clients are, what problem you're solving, large industrial concerns or public service. And I'm going to ask you the kind of question you get asked at the Public Policy Forum event, which is, from a policy perspective, the landscape is very scattered. And I'd like to hear you on one thing public officials should concentrate on to make things better. What's the one policy advice you give them? In the mix right now, we got public officials preoccupied with using the tax system to incent companies to deploy AI, using various types of subsidies. Others are focused on AI safety and mitigating the risk related to AI. Some people in the medical area will be most focused on privacy and what's the role of government to protect privacy. Should we make our publicly owned data available and engineered for use by various AI? What the place of AI in industrial policy? Should we have sovereign compute? How does that impact our power and electricity infrastructure projects? It's a long list. So to some of you, some of the answer might be in the nature of leave us alone to do our thing. But I suspect you have some views also about what officials can do at the provincial and federal level to actually help Canada and Canadian companies and Canadian organizations close a gap that's appearing now between this jurisdiction and others in terms of nimbleness around AI and adoption. So let's do this in reverse order. Todd, I'm going to put you on the spot first.
Policy. So in Canada, right, we have a fantastic base, I would say, on the academic side. The fundamentals of AI, the science, the engineering, the education system, really great. That needs to continue, right? We obviously have some Nobel laureates, right? Fantastic, needs to continue. Where we really struggle, I think, overall in Canada, and it's quite honestly the same, I think, in other areas, is its application, its adoption, it's the application layer. How do you take all that tremendous resource we have sort of at the academic level and then bring it to whether it's the shop floor or engineering or HR, finance, whatever the function may be, and get it in there. And I think I have that challenge in a large enterprise. I think it's a very similar challenge when I look at small and medium enterprises across the country, right? How do you get that out there? And I think that's a place where policy can maybe help by shifting focus a little bit from the pure academic research side into the application, into the businesses themselves, right?
Peter.
Yeah, tricky one. So many things that they could help with, but if I were to pick on one, I think certainly in healthcare, I think Canada's in a very good position to lead globally on the evolution of AI in health tech. And as you pointed out, we have a lot of AI skills historically, and even today we lead. But a big deal is that we have a tremendous amount of medical record data, which is the fuel for AI. How to harness that, how to actually develop application layers that we can get out into our hospitals and frontline workers really quickly. If the government can empower that to happen, then you have an opportunity to really build out a commercial or an economic engine for this that the rest of the world's going to want to have. Right now, it's very difficult to engage in this. It's very fragmented. Everybody's got to try to muddle along on their own. The academics will do their bit, but even there, it's difficult to get it out into the community settings. So it's tough. We as the doers have to try to make this all happen. And quite frankly, government isn't helping that along in the current time. And this is something I think they got to work out something to help that spawn a whole economic engine here.
Thank you.
You know, PhysicsX is headquartered in the UK. I've spent a lot of my career, you know, though I'm Canadian. My alma mater is McGill. I live in Montreal now, but you know, my last business was headquartered in the UK, and this one is as well. And so I sort of straddle the Canada and the UK, and we're very exposed to the US as well. And I see, like, I often find that Canada's in, you know, I would say the same trap, falls into the same trap that Europe does, which is this penchant to regulate, to want to think about innovation at the level of regulation, which, you know, maybe it's fallen a little bit out of fashion, and I would say that's a good thing. I think it's a little bit lamentable that Canada, despite leading on the research side, with such an, you know, with incredible people like, you know, Jeff Hinton and Joshua Benjo, but also so many amazing labs across Canada, Joanna Precups Lab, Joel Pinot, and a number of others, that there isn't, you know, there aren't more places where we are winning, where we are creating category-defining companies. And, you know, the problem is that, maybe this speaks a little bit to your point, Peter, on fragmentation. Like, there isn't a coherent vision for, you know, where are we going to win? And it's probably not going to be, you know, at the infrastructure layer. It's probably not going to be on building sort of multimodal foundation models and frontier models. Cohere was in that game. Cohere is no longer in that game. They've got a different play now, but they are creating an incredibly valuable company. But I think Canada needs to have a vision for what industries do we have an opportunity to be able to win in, and it's going to be in a number of different vertical areas. Maybe healthcare is one of them. I'd say mining and materials is another. And the energy sector as well, a little bit more broadly. Like, we have an opportunity in virtue of these, you know, these sectors that are, you know, at scale, to be able to create companies that are going to bring AI into these sectors. But what it requires is a little bit of a coherent vision to do that. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, the Netherlands announced this, what I think is a pretty ambitious vision to be able to be a leader by 2040 in biotech. And a number of things that they are going to, you know, and AI really in biotech. And they've announced, like, investments on the infrastructure side, because infrastructure matters. One of the other things that they called out is the importance and creating a number of regulatory sandboxes in a few very specific areas. Again, you know, if you think about regulatory sandboxes and how instrumental they were, let's say, in the UK to creating companies like Revolut, like Monzo, the whole fintech sector there, I think there's an imperative for Canada to think along those lines as well. What are the regulatory sandboxes that we can create, maybe around healthcare, maybe around the energy sector and mining, to ease the adoption? And the last one I would say, and this is less of a policy point, though maybe incentives matter, maybe tax incentives can help, you know, create a little bit of flywheel, but customers matter. Like, the reason I'm anchoring on the, you know, the verticals that I mentioned, the industrial sectors that I mentioned, is precisely because, you know, there's the producer side of things and the creation category defining companies, but you need the buy side as well. And Canada has the buy side in these very specific sectors, but there needs to be a willingness to purchase, to engage, to forward procure, and to do so quickly. And right now, that runs a little bit against the grain of a lot of, you know, Canadian companies. And I say that, you know, because, you know, we've in my prior business in particular, you know, we were in a world where we started in the UK, we expanded in Canada, but we didn't see anywhere near the rate of adoption that we were seeing in the US. in the same sectors, right? Right now in the UK, that we're headquartered in the UK, about 70% of our turnover comes from the US. It's like the same, we're touching industrial sectors, right? But like where, you know, which is a function maybe of that selection bias, but it's also reflecting a bit of a culture and a disposition and an appetite to engage with new technology a little bit more quickly. And I think that's a culture point, but Canada has to find ways of engaging on that side as well.
Thank you, Giacomo. Nicole, over to you.
I agree a lot with what Giacomo said. We have to decide how we're going to win in AI in Canada. We have an exceptional foundation in research and talent development, but we suck at commercialization and adoption. My sales cycle is a really good example. It's 18 months in Canada and it's 4 months in the US. That's a problem. If that continues, Canada will not be able to compete. AI is out of the bag. There is no stuffing it back in. Our organizations have to start adopting it. We have to start deciding how to set up our tax structures to encourage investment. We have to start, you know, getting the right regulations in place that make people feel safe, but also encourage innovation. So, you know, we aren't going to win at every part of AI. We can't become insular. This is a global supply chain. But where is Canada going to win? And we have to decide. And we have to lean in.
Thank you, Nicole. Leaning in. It looks like we might not have the time for the Slido questions. I'm not sure what my instruction set is because we're at time, and I feel like a lot of very interesting questions flashed on the screen. So let me try a rapid fire one just before we conclude. I'm cheating a little bit against the clock. One of the questions was, what's the most overblown, overhyped, useless AI concept you see floating around? What's the thing we should not spend time on? I can think of a few, but any one of you wants to engage on that?
I would say stop chasing the latest and greatest. Use the methodology of AI that best suits the problem you're trying to solve that exists today. Stop trying to, it must be generative AI, or it must be agentic AI, or it must use the method that works the best for the problem.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any?
Well, the one, you know, that's a complete waste of time is the one that helps me look what I looked like when I was a baby all the way to when I'm 90. It's amazing. I got to stop using it.
Anything you want to add, Giacomo or Todd?
No. I mean, I think that the point of finding the right tool and trying to err on the side of lowest complexity, like that, I think that matters a great deal. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel we just scratched the surface. This was a very interesting panel. You're there you're with us for the rest of the day, and most of you are there for dinner. Don't be surprised if people walk up to you and have an AI question, because I think we teased out a lot of interesting topics. I think that concludes our panel, and I want to thank all the panelists for sharing those insights with us.